Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the show at night. And here he is. You know him. You love him. You cannot get enough of him. Your host and star, Josh Beckish.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very, very, very special edition of the show at night with me, Josh, once again, Byron. Thank you for the lovely introduction. That was
Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
very exciting show. Very happy to see you. We have a very special guest on today. We have Kathy Golik, the former manager of Laura Branigan, who famously sang the song Gloria that became the anthem for the Blues last year during their run to the Stanley Cup. We're going to have her on to talk to her and, see what that whole experience was like, because, boy, was it a wild summer last year.
Oh, my goodness. You tell. Yeah, no, it was fantastic. And it'll be interesting to get her perspective on things, what that looked like from her point of view.
Very much so, especially from an outsider's perspective and somebody that, worked with an artist that had a big hit, and it kind of, it was a song that, stuck around in, some regard or another for years. You'd hear it on, classic.
Yeah, I mean, it never completely faded away, but it had a huge resurgence due to the St. Louis Blues.
Absolutely. And also, in the midst of all that, I know she was invited and she was here and she was part of the whole thing. So it'd be really fun to, get a view of things through her eyes.
I can't wait to hear what she has to say. Very excited.
It'd be very fun. So we're very excited today.
As always.
Yeah, I mean, it was a wild time here in St. Louis for those of you who are unaware of where the show is based out of. Yeah, actually, it was a year. Can you? Here's a question for you. Can you think back and remember what happened between the two of us exactly 1 year and 1 day ago?
That must have been our first date.
It was our first date. Me and
exciting!
We actually went to, I believe it was Game 6.
It was a Game 6.
The Blues versus the Winnipeg Jets in the first round of the playoff.
Yep.
We won. It was a very exciting game.
Absolutely. There's a lot of energy in that building tonight. I know that's an overused phrase, but there was a great deal of collective confidence between the fans and the players. We came right out and scored, I think, in under a minute, if I remember correctly. It was pretty quick.
It was fast. It was furious, as some would say, and it was a wild time. I know you've obviously followed the Blues for years. I grew up following them. I took about took around 33 years of my life to see it, but just the chance to see the Blues in the Stanley Cup final and then to win it after years and years of being, a Blues fan and having to watch the disappointment of, okay, this is the year, and then all of a sudden something would happen. This is the year, and then all of a sudden you're out in the first round. This is the year, and then all of a sudden there's a devastating loss in the, semifinals or something.
Right.
What are some of your fondest memories, and what were things that were going through your mind while the whole thing was going on?
Well, being a lifelong Blues fan, my experience is very similar to yours. So I had, let's just say, some reluctant optimism, right? I thought the team looks good, and there's a lot of pieces that are falling in place, and the story as it developed became one that was undeniably on a track of destiny, let's say. All the things that were going on, from being in last place to first place, the rookie goaltender, Layla situation, all of that. It was just a magical story. It was really fun to be a part of. I went to the Game 6 with you, and we won. I went to Game 6 of the Sharks series of the Western Conference Finals. And those were two great experiences. And then we had, we have some mutual friends, and we had a gathering on our dear friend Clary's birthday. And we won on that night. And then we were all together on the Game 7 clincher. And I didn't believe it until it was actually over, because I didn't want to be overly optimistic. I thought hockey is a very quick game. A lot can happen, So when it was under a minute and we had that lead in Game 7, I looked at my friend and I said, we're going to win the Stanley Cup.
It was great. It was a wonderful time. And we can't wait to talk to Laura Branigan's representation about it and see how she enjoyed everything, and maybe get a couple behind the scenes looks and do, a few things that we may not be, have gotten granted access to. And I'm excited to talk to her.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a great deal of inside information. Again, just a different perspective on it, and see what her experience was. It'll be interesting to hear.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to make you wait too much longer. We'll take a short commercial break here, and then when we return, we will be back with Kathy Golik for you right here on the show at night. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Really happy that you guys are continuing to come back and let us bring a little something into your lives. I have a fun segment I wanted to come up with. If you go to and follow the show at night on Instagram, the DMs are open. Go on there and give me a message. And you can buy yourself this lovely commercial opportunity. You can, I will, do a segment sponsored by, insert name here. And we'll try to get the fans a little more involved in the show. See if anybody's listening, a little something for you. So go follow us, the show at night on Instagram. And you too could be part of history as you sponsor one of these segments. So we will see you there. And ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, take it away, Josh. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We are very excited on the show here today. We have a great guest, a lot of excitement about it right now. We have Kathy Golik, former manager of Laura Branigan, of course, the woman who recorded and sang the song Gloria, that was the victory song for the St. Louis Blues during their run to the Stanley Cup. Kathy, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you, Josh?
I'm doing great. Very excited. We just, it's about the time the playoffs should be going on here in St. Louis.
Exactly.
Obviously, it's not going on. We were talking earlier about how, I remember it was a year ago yesterday, we were at, me and my co-host, we were at Game 6 in the first round series where we won to go to the next round, and we were just talking about how exciting everything was. And so we're very happy and excited to get a chance to talk to you about your perspective through all that.
Oh, and I appreciate you inviting me to come on the show.
Well, absolutely. So first off, just want to check in, make sure everything's good. How are you doing with everything that's going on?
Right. Yeah. Well, it's not anything any of us expected. So I guess I'm just hanging in there like the rest of us, doing what we have to do to hopefully get this all behind us.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll get it figured out soon enough and get everything going back to hockey and get it all figured out.
Right. Exactly. It just has changed everything in life right now. So.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Well, first off, I was going to give a little background here. What was, years ago, what was the whole situation with you and Laura Branigan? You were her manager. We were just going to see, how did you two meet and come to know each other, and then the process of becoming her manager, and then, maybe a little background into how things were with that whole experience.
Yeah. Well, my story is pretty unique in the fact that I started out as a fan. When Gloria came out in 1982, there was this new singer, and I heard Gloria, and I just loved the song. Thought she had such a unique, powerful voice. Thought she looked like a nice person to get to know more about as an artist. And so I was 14 years old. So I started as a fan, and just throughout the years, just remaining a fan and just loving her stuff, loving her music. Of course, I liked other artists too. You know, they were in the mix too.
Yeah.
But something about Laura, she was just very unique, and she always came off as a very humble, sincere person. And I think that attracted me to her as an artist as well. And she didn't seem to have this sort of celebrity or star attitude about her. She just seemed really like the girl next door when I would watch interviews and things like that. So I stayed a fan, and in the mid-90s, she had quit the business. Her husband, unfortunately, was diagnosed with colon cancer. So she essentially took a hiatus from the business to take care of him. Unfortunately, he passed a few years later. So she took the time to mourn and try to get through all that. It, of course, was a very tough situation for her, a very sad situation to get through. And she started recording again towards the late 90s and started to do some shows again. And then we get into the 2000s, and I just started going. She started to do some more shows around and getting back out there. And I started to go to them, and I pretty much ended up going to all of them. And she would do meet and greets after the show, and we would always hang around for that. And so through that process, there was a group of us. We were kind of like the regulars that she could always look out in the audience towards the front rows, and she would see us and then make her feel comfortable. And she'd hang around with us after the meet and greets too. So I just got to know her through that. And one thing led to another, and she did not have an official website. So the first thing I did on her behalf is her official website, which is laurabraniganonline.com. So that was my first foray into doing anything in a professional sense for her. And that was just a thrill to me, because here I am. I've been a fan of this artist all my life, and now I have an opportunity to give something back to help her establish an online presence and get that sort of thing going. So I enjoyed doing that. I had a lot of fun doing that. This was the time before social media, when the discussion forums were big. So we had that going on. That was real successful, and a great interaction with the fans. And we just did that for a while. And then she got to a point where she was in between management, and she was trying to book shows, and she was working on a cookbook she was writing, and she was continuing to record a new album, the one that we were going to get back out there and get her back out in the public again. And I said to her, Laura, I can help you with some of this stuff if you want me to, help you with, you don't have a manager right now, I can help you with it. And she was like, sure. And one time I talked to one of our mutual friends, and she was saying to me, well, Laura thinks you're doing a really good job, what you're doing. And she said, you're pretty much doing what her manager would do, and you're doing a good job at it. So not too long after that, Laura asked me to be her manager. So that's how that happened. So I did that, and unfortunately we lost her then. And after we lost her, I transitioned to her legacy manager. So I've been doing that for the last 15 years.
Wow, that is a very cool story. It's not a lot of, opportunity where you get to grow up and, enjoy somebody's work, and then eventually get to meet them and not only become friendly with them, but, work with them and help them establish.
Right. Yeah. And the friend part too, it's not like we knew each other all of our lives, obviously, but there was something between us that just clicked. Some people you meet in your life and you just click with them. And that was the way it was with Laura and I. And she placed a lot of trust in me. And of course, that's important in that business, because there are a lot of people that you can't trust. Yeah. So the trust factor was really big with she and I. And, it's a real honor to continue on and do this and carry forth her legacy, because we were close friends. And so it's not just a job to me, it's very personal to me all the way around.
Well, absolutely. And I'd say personally, you've done a fantastic job so far. I know you were front and center. There was a lot of seeing you, and, you were kind of keeping people up to date on what was going on with the whole situation last year. A question I have is, so the song originally comes out in 1982, I believe.
Yes.
There. So, obviously it's years later. I mean, at this point, it's almost 40 years later. And, it still pops up on, radio here and there and all this. But how did you first learn and hear about what was going on with how the St. Louis Blues had kind of adopted the song as their their victory song, especially as they were going through a whole kind of resurgence with the team. I mean, at one point last year they were in dead last in the NHL, fewest points out of anybody around, almost no shot at making the playoffs at all. And then all of a sudden they bring in this Gloria song every time they win, and all of a sudden they just start rising up the standings. How were you first introduced to the fact that all that was going on?
Well, it was back in March. Of course, I do Laura's social media. So I saw a tweet. And somebody said the Blues won and they played Gloria afterwards. And I saw that and I thought that was neat. That's neat, a professional sports team playing Gloria. That's really a neat thing. But it wasn't to where there was a lot of buzz about it yet, or at least that I had seen yet. So I thought, yeah, that's nice. And I just sort of put it out of my mind. I thought maybe it was a one-off thing or something like that. So, of course, I didn't realize right then and there how big everything was going to become the story, until I started to see more tweets about it. And then the media got a hold of it, and we're seeing more in the media about it. There were articles about it. And I'm thinking to myself, there is a lot more to this.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so so you find out, and it's kind of just like, I'm sure at first it's kind of like, oh, well, that's nice. I'm sure it's, nothing more than just, they played this song. Because, I mean, it was not even the full season they had it. It kind of got brought in about midway through, or, a little bit after the turn of the year. And then, as it just like built up, and I'm sure you started seeing more and more and more as it kind of became, as the, Play Gloria kind of became the victory call after that. Like, what was that like, just seeing like all this new attention coming to the song and to Laura as a whole?
Oh, it was just absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's not something, I think the true beauty of it is it's something that wasn't planned. It was just a very organic occurrence.
Right.
And it wasn't a result of a marketing campaign or anything like that. And just how, just how everybody just got on board with it. The city, the team, it just blossomed into this just gigantic thing. It just took on a momentum of its own. And and from my perspective, first of all, of course, I'm going to think about Laura and the song, and I'm thinking, wow, this is just such a great opportunity for her legacy. And I thought about her, and that part is always the hard part, because she's not here. And I would love to, especially how it all played out, I would have loved for her to have been here and to have been a part of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it really is unfortunate that she wasn't, able to see it, because I could just, imagine a whole thing where, during the playoffs or just something, having her here and even like singing the national anthem or singing that song after a game or at some point like that. I mean, it would have just been a incredible experience to have her be a part of it.
Right.
So everything, it's more and more, you're seeing more about it. And were you like, are you a sports fan, a hockey fan? Did you know anything? Did people start kind of cluing you in as to like what actually was going on with the Blues? Were kind of being like, hey, they were this horrible team in dead last, and then all of a sudden they've switched, and since then they're the hottest team in the NHL right now.
Right. Well, I was not any kind of hardcore hockey fan. I live in Pittsburgh, so I'm very much aware it's Penguins territory. So
Right.
Hockey is very big around here. Of course, they've won their share of Stanley Cups. I would watch it here and there, but I can't say that I was I'd sit down and I'd have to watch every Penguins game or anything like that. So I wasn't any kind of hardcore hockey fan. But I started just reading the articles that were coming out, and because that's the thing. At first, I did not realize all of the story about the team. I just thought, okay, they're playing Gloria, they're playing it after they win, but I didn't realize the significance of they were in very last place, and now they're making this ascent up in the standings along with the song. So it was pretty much as I delved into it more and read more myself and really saw a lot of got a lot of information from Blues fans on social media. And that was a big way that I found out, got a little more background on the whole story.
Yeah, it was definitely, was buzzing all through the city. Like I said, Play Gloria became the rally cry kind of. And, you'd go to any bar in St. Louis, and if they had a jukebox, Play Gloria, you'd hear it, a handful of times, or Gloria, you'd hear it a handful of times throughout the night. Karaoke bars, I mean, everybody was coming up trying to sing, Gloria and all that. It definitely,
right.
Definitely swept through here. Well, as things went along, and the Blues actually were getting into the playoffs, and it was becoming, a bigger and bigger thing. I know eventually the team reached out to you, and you got to experience a lot of what was going on here with the team. What was that experience like when they kind of brought you in and you actually got to kind of fully see what the fan base was like and the reaction to the song and, the way they dealt with all that?
Yeah, that it was really nice. Of course, they reached out to me first on social media. Of course, they were doing their part. I was doing my end of things, and they were very appreciative and supportive of my support. The song, the team. It was all, we're all working together at that point for a common goal. The song is popular. It's a success when the team is winning. They want to win. They want to advance in the playoffs. So yeah, it was just a nice mutual relationship between myself and different staff members of the Blues.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was, it was very fun, because I remember seeing on TV and online stuff that they'd show that you were actually in St. Louis for, a handful of the playoff action that was going on. Had you known much about St. Louis? Had you been here before? Like, what was your experience actually in St. Louis, and what was the reaction from people like?
Yeah. Well, I had not actually been in the city. I'd been in the airport before, passing through to other places, but I had not actually been to the city. Of course, everybody thinks of, as soon as they think of St. Louis, they think obviously of the Gateway Arch.
Right.
So I thought it would be nice to go to St. Louis even before this happened. I'd like to see that arch and everything. So when I got there, it was just the best experience. I think my favorite part of everything, really. I mean, I'm happy the team obviously won the cup. I'm happy about Gloria being played. But when I got to the city, everybody was just so very warm with me, so very welcoming. I just loved talking to Blues fans. Even if I was waiting in line to get into Enterprise or just walking around town, everybody was just so welcoming and gave me such a warm feeling, and just telling me how much they loved, Gloria, and how much it means to them, and how it has so much meaning now with the team. And just as even before I got there, while I was there, just seeing all the participation of people in City Hall making videos, people in companies, kids at schools. It just totally blew my mind how everybody got so involved with it. And when I was there, one of the first things I did, I took a tour of City Hall, and I got to meet the mayor. And another highlight at Busch Stadium, the Cardinals, they hosted me one night at one of their games, and just, of course, everybody at Enterprise. And it was just, I had just a fantastic experience. I was there for over 3 weeks. I came with the intention of arriving in St. Louis to stay as far as the team would go. I had my plans open-ended. As far as they would go, I was committed to stay there and see it all through. So I arrived a few hours before watch party for game 1. And I was there. I went to every watch party. I went to every game at Enterprise. And obviously the experience there in the arena, before I had arrived, I'm watching it on TV. I'm hearing Gloria a little bit at the end before the broadcast cuts away. And I thought that was just wonderful. But to be in Enterprise Center, I remember the first game that they won that I was there, and I heard the song coming up afterwards, and just being there right in the crowd and looking around at all the fans and all the lights going and all the activity on the ice with the flags afterwards, and just hearing Laura's song just blaring in there. it really, there really was no words. It was an exciting thing to be a part of. And in my heart, I get a little teary eyed for Laura. It just, it touched me so much, and nothing quite like that experience of being in there and sharing that with everybody and hearing the song in the arena.
Yeah, no, I was at a few of the games. I was at, obviously the game I brought up, the game 6 in the first round, and then I'd actually got a chance to go to 2 of the home Stanley Cup games, and it really was a feel after the games when Gloria would come on. And I mean, honestly, for most people, especially the younger fan base that had been going to the games throughout the year, it was a song that was relatively, if not completely new to several people. But by the time the playoffs were going, especially by the time we got to Stanley Cup, the end of the game when that song would come on, it was almost like a concert experience. It was the big hit, and everybody was singing along, and you could hear it throughout the stadium. How did that compare to hearing all the fans sing it after a Blues win as compared to when it would just be in like a regular concert?
Oh, it was just as thrilling. When Laura would do that song in concert, that was obviously one of the highlights. Like she said, she will never stop singing Gloria, because she would say the crowd just goes wild every time, and they did. And that's what I experienced at Enterprise Center. Many people going wild when that song would play. And there's something about that song, that introduction to that song, that it has such an energy, such a velocity. I mean, when that buzzer goes off and that game is done and they've won, and you're just anticipating when that boom, that intro comes on. And I that's the part I think is one of the best parts. It's it's coming, and it's going to be big, that intro, and there it goes. And I think that it just has such an energy about it, that song, and I think that's one of the reasons why it was just perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it was great, because I don't know if we really, growing up being a Blues fan, I don't know if we'd ever really had a consistent big, victory song that everybody would, stick around. I mean,
yeah.
After a certain point, after these games, as opposed to just, the final horn goes out and everybody starts heading for the exits. I mean, people were sticking around to sing the song, and then they leave after that. So it really was just an incredible time. You said you were at a lot of the games, through social media and other things, on TV and all that. They did, you got to see that you were involved there. Where were you for Game 7, and what was kind of like the overall feeling after it actually, all this stuff had finally culminated in this championship that we, people in St. Louis had been waiting for 50 plus years, and they finally win it, and the first thing you hear is Gloria come on.
Right. Like I said, I was actually in Enterprise for every watch party, every game. So I was in Enterprise. That was, of course, a watch party, since they were playing in Boston. And when those final seconds were ticking down on the Jumbotron, and we're all watching, and we're knowing what's coming, and of course, that was the absolute best time. It was a surreal time, as they won the cup, and I'm hearing the song, but I'm just looking around at everybody, and we're all just screaming, and it's pandemonium, and so electric in the arena. To me, that was like a once in a lifetime experience. I was so happy that's when I said, yes, this is why I knew I needed to be in St. Louis. I needed to be there the whole time for the whole final to see this through. I was hoping that's what the ending would be, and here it is. That is the ending, and I'm listening. I'm screaming. Like I said, I'm part of it all too. But then in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, Gloria is now. It's being played, and they've lifted the cup. We're watching that go on the Jumbotron, watching it from Boston. And it was just so surreal, to realize that you take this story that started out just very organically, and the team has gone now from worst to first, and Gloria's taken that journey with them. And now the journey, that's the destination. They're lifting that cup, Gloria's being played. And just that realization, it didn't hit me obviously as it hit me more after that as I thought about it, but it did hit me. It's like, wow, this is big, because this is the first Stanley Cup in team history, and Gloria went along for the ride, and that's going to be forever connected together now.
Yeah,
that's a big deal, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And especially, for to be on the side of it where you're coming from, where you're not super familiar with the Blues organization as a whole, or the city of St. Louis, and then to come in and spend those 3 weeks here and kind of watch it build firsthand. Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, I was there, and I can tell you now, though, I am a Blues fan. Definitely, because my time spent there was concentrated, and I learned a lot quickly. I learned a lot about hockey culture, and mostly the Blues. I just think Blues fans they're so on fire for the team. It just the love that the city has for the team, to me, is just incredible. And so I picked up on that. I learned a lot of things. I watched those games. I learned a lot more about the game of hockey, and of course, so I'm there experiencing it personally, but also too I'm there representing Laura. And when that cup was won, of course, one of my first thoughts was about her too, and just how wonderful this is to have Gloria associated with that, to have her associated with that. But again, always with that tinge of sadness that I wish she would have been sitting right beside me,
right,
to experience that with everybody. But I believe she saw it. I believe she was just smiling down on everything. That's the way I like to say it, and I think that she was. And had she been there in person, there would have been nobody that would have been screaming louder or happier than she would have been, because she just would have thought it was the neatest thing. And we're just so grateful. I'm so grateful personally for the whole experience. And a lot of times I just sit back and look back on it. It's sometimes it's almost it was just such a special story. It's one of those kind of Cinderella type stories, for the team, for the song, for Laura's legacy. And I don't think, just the way everything came together, I think it's one of the greatest stories in NHL history, as far as a team using a song and just everything, winning the cup for the first time in history. And it's I don't think it's something that will be replicated anytime soon, or maybe at all. It was to me, it was like fate. It was fate.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was such an amazing experience. I don't know how many more times we can talk about how incredible it was. It really was wild. I don't know if you how much you looked into, or how much you saw or were showed all the other things that were going on during that Game 7. I know me and some friends of mine, we were at the watch party at the Enterprise Center had sold out in about 2 seconds.
Right.
So we actually we got tickets they opened up Busch Stadium down the street.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw anything from there, but I mean, that was really an incredible experience. It was, first off, it was outdoors. It was in the stadium. They had it on the big screen, and then just to really look into how invested everybody was and how serious all the fans were. At one point, for about 10, 15 or so minutes, I think it started raining, and the game was on, and just nobody left. A handful of people, obviously, but for the most part, people just stayed in their seats and kept watching. They weren't going to let a little rain, to protect them from watching the Stanley Cup.
No, that was incredible, and they were doing some shots from Busch Stadium. We could see them, So that's just, again, that's was my perception. I'm like, this city, they are so supportive of this team, and I think that was wonderful. Right, those watch party tickets, I think for Game 7 they sold out in a matter of minutes, and so I thought that was so great how they opened up Busch Stadium so people could be there, and that's just that's incredible. Doing that just gave people, such a way to feel involved and be there, just like we were at Enterprise. And I just think that was awesome.
It was really fantastic. It was really, I mean, I'd never seen anything like that during, any of the other teams having runs to championships. I'd never seen them open up multiple stadiums for people just to go sit and watch the game. So it was definitely a really, really cool experience. It's one that I'll never forget because, I can't imagine there'd be anything like it again in my lifetime.
Right.
But so the Blues win. Everything's going on. There's the parade, and then there's the build up and seeing them all with the cup and all that during the off season. Did you have much involvement in wanting to see, or at least like keeping up with all that, or did you kind of just take that time to kind of relax from your 3-week party and?
No, I stayed on top of it, and I wanted to stay on top of everything. No, I was following right along with everybody. Of course, I stayed for several days after they won, and I was at the parade and everything. And it was really hard. To leave the city. I had made friends, and I just had the best time. It was a bit sad to leave St. Louis after all that. But yeah, I continued it was all very interesting to me. I continued to follow along with the celebrations, and it made me smile every time because so many, whether it was in this country, Canada, Europe, wherever they took the cup, so many times I heard Gloria playing in the background. So she continued to take the journey along with the team as the cup was going different places and they were celebrating with it. So that really made me smile to see that. And I had intentions. I said to myself pretty much after they won that people started talking about the banner raising because, not being familiar with hockey, I really didn't know when they do something like that. And they said, oh, well, they do that opening night of the next season. So I'd already in my mind started to think, hey, yeah, I want to go back for the banner raising. So I watched all the festivities going on in the summer, and then I look forward to, I definitely wanted to return for opening night and to see that banner being raised up to the rafters. That was very important to me. That was all part of the story, and I wanted to be there for that as well.
Well, yeah, and I'm glad you were able to stay connected and stay involved with the team and come back for that. I know that must have been a bit of a bittersweet moment because they were raising the banner. There was all the celebration of the championship, but also it kind of also became the retirement night for Gloria as part of I think the Blues as a team kind of went, this was a song that was incredibly special to that particular season, and I think the best thing to do is just leave it with that team and let it live on and that legacy. What were the feelings like for you when you saw it going up and heard playing Gloria for the last time?
Right. I before I came there, I heard the rumblings of that and everything, but then I came back for opening night, and I'm in Enterprise, and I figured it was going to be one of those choked up moments, and it was. I think that, of course, it was fantastic to be there after Game 7 when the cup was won. But for me and what I do, and for Laura, that was very, very emotional that night. And as I started to see that banner come up, starting to be raised up out of there, and got to the point where, boom, there comes the intro, there comes the song, and I have to say, I chills up my spine, which I still do when I see that footage. It was. I was very happy, and again, such an honor to me. What I thought as I saw it going up to, I thought to myself, it was like the banner was being raised, the song was being played. To me, it was like that was going up to Laura in the heavens. That's kind of how I saw it, and I like to see it. And of course, that made me so happy. It's such a sense of pride. So happy that I was there again to represent her, to see that happen in person. It was just incredible. And on Sunday, they released the History Made director's cut, and the episode was the banner raising. So yesterday I was watching that, and I still got that same feeling, just like I was there, and it choked me up a bit. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful moment.
Right.
Moment in time is that banner raised. But yeah, then it became clearer as the team was talking that they were going to be retiring Gloria with that season. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, is there a little part of me that would love to have seen it continue to be used? Yes, only because it's Laura, it's Gloria. It's a great song. And now so much meaning with the Stanley Cup. But yet I understand, and I think it was a good thing to do. Yeah. To retire it. I think it was the right thing. It was a wise decision. It was appropriate to allow it to be preserved with that Cinderella season, that whole great story that we've talked about in the Stanley Cup, first one in team history. So it went out on, when that banner was being raised, to me it went out on the highest note. But as a side note, I know too, there are a lot of people that stay in contact with me through Twitter or just different communications. And they tell me, Kathy, we go outside of Enterprise Center and people are still playing Gloria after a win, or we hear it on the streets, or we're in our house, we still play Gloria after a win. So, it's one of those things, right? The team can move on from it and do whatever they want, but in the hearts of so many Blues fans, they still really get a charge out of listening to it and playing it. And of course, one of the things that makes me feel the best, I was on Twitter last night and somebody said that they had just come off their night shift and they got in their car and they turned on St. Louis radio and Gloria was on. And they said, oh, they felt so good. Although they just came out of work, they felt so good to hear Gloria, and it just took them back to when the cup was won. And that's, to have her song associated with that, those good, happy feelings in people's lives. I think that's the greatest thing. And the song undoubtedly will never be forgotten in the city of St. Louis. And, it's part of now the legacy of the Blues, the legacy of the city, and Laura's legacy. And they're all going to be forever intertwined together and forever connected. And I think that's what Laura would really be happy about. She loved people to be happy and have a good time. And I believe if she was here talking to you today, she would say that would be what would be the thing that would make her the happiest, that when people hear that song and they associate it, that, it's a good feeling. They're happy, and it reminds them of such a good thing.
Well, yeah, like you said, I mean, it's regardless if it's, being played after the game tonight, it's definitely a song that will live on in some regard forever in St. Louis.
Right.
It is tied to such a historic moment for the Blues. And I know everybody was just, playing it nonstop. You couldn't go anywhere without hearing it. So regardless of the situation, it'll definitely live on in the hearts of St. Louis fans for, years to come.
Right.
Well, yeah. I think we've said it all here. We've gone there. I'm gonna real quick before we let you go though. I don't know if you heard this, but there was the Blues did like a team interview meeting thing over this Zoom a couple weeks ago, and they announced what the new victory song was going to be for the Blues. Did you hear about that at all?
Yeah, I heard about that, and I had even heard about that even prior to that, because some people had said that they were playing the Eddie Murphy song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was just a very that was kind of funny, and it was just an interesting, a complete 180 in terms of songs.
Right. Well, the funny thing though is it's funny that it's Eddie Murphy, because his one very big movie, Coming to America, Laura actually had a song on the soundtrack.
Oh well,
to that movie. So it's there's a Laura Eddie Murphy connection there a little bit. So
the connections are endless. It's something that, once again, nobody will ever forget. And,
right.
And we enjoy it.
And Right, and I actually was there October. I actually came back. I had to do something else in St. Louis in November. I came back in November and I went to a game. So you will see me back at Enterprise. I just have such a good feeling. I love to come back to St. Louis. I definitely will be back. As far as being a Blues fan, I'm real about it. I didn't just say that. Before the season got put up in pause, I haven't missed a game. I have to listen to most of them, just audio. But when they're on TV, I've listened to all of them or I've seen them on TV. So, and I belong to a really neat Blues fan group on Facebook. I enjoy interacting with all of them. And it's made me a hockey fan too, and a Blues fan at that. So
there you go. Well, hey, when all this is over, you come back to St. Louis and hey, we'll catch a game.
Oh, that'd be great. I'd love to do that.
Well, yeah, we'll set it up, and we'll have a whole new series of things to talk about.
Great. Well, thanks so much for having me, Josh.
Thank you so much for joining us. It was great having you on. It was great getting all this, insight as to what was going on behind the scenes and just associated with things that weren't, what everybody was just, kind of had available to them at the time. And thank you so much for coming on. And we'll talk again soon.
Oh, sounds great.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. A wonderful interview. Wouldn't you say, Byron?
It really was. It really was. I mean, a great deal of information. What a sweetheart, too. What a wonderful lady. Very, it was just nice to meet her. Nice to meet her. From a appropriate social distance.
Right. I mean, yeah, it was fantastic. It's great. You watch these moments from home or at the game or wherever it is, and, you see one side of the whole thing, but to get that look into a situation, that was so big and was just like completely taking over the city of St. Louis, and to have that inside look, that was wonderful. And I hope everybody.
It was. I always appreciate different perspectives on things, and we were so immersed in that as fans in the community. It's nice to hear other people enjoyed the experience as well that weren't, as fully emotionally invested as we were.
No, yeah, it was wonderful. So glad we were able to have her on the show, and hopefully
very gracious of her to spend her time with us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed it all. We will be back on Thursday with new stuff for you. We've got a couple different things in the works, so it'll be a surprise for everyone what shows up here on Thursday. Yeah. As always, for my co-host Byron, for myself, your host Josh, we thank you all for tuning in. Come back and see us again. And as we always say here on the show at night, bye.